Ethiopia's hosting of 35th AU session said a symbolic diplomatic victory. And IGAD to face tougher challenges ahead in meeting economic needs of the region. Greetings everyone and a very warm welcome to Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Shifar Alako and do stay with us. Now, President Sahle-Work Zewde and Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, have visited people displaced following the drought situation in the Somali regional state. The two officials visited drought-stricken communities in Kabri Baya district in the region. Somali Regional State Chief Mustafa Mohammed, senior officials of federal and regional states have also participated in the visit. Ethiopia and Burundi agreed to work together militarily and economically. This came when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed held talks with the Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed underscored that Ethiopia is making great strides in the agriculture sector, especially in the field of irrigation. Thus, the Premier said Burundi could learn a lot from Ethiopia's agricultural industry. He also said that Ethiopia is successfully implementing the Green Initiative program, which is of great benefit to neighboring countries. For his part, the president of Burundi recalled that he came to Ethiopia 2 years ago, stating that Ethiopia is currently undergoing a major transformation. The president also said Ethiopia has been able to hold the African Union summit peacefully despite internal and external difficulties, praising that the government of Ethiopia has played an important role in this regard. He said the Burundian delegation will visit Ethiopia to gain experience in the field of agriculture in the shortest time possible. Ethiopia and Burundi have had long and good relations and are known for working together for peace and stability in East Africa.
It is the right time to reform and revitalize the United Nations system to reflect current global realities and ensure that it is a more representative and equitable body. With our Esluini Consensus of 2005, we should collectively insist that Africa's reasonable request for no less than 2 permanent seats and 5 non-permanent seats in the UN Security Council be adopted.
Moving on, African heads of states and governments gathered in Addis Ababa last week for the 35th ordinary session of the African Union Summit. Recent coups and attempted power grabs, the coronavirus pandemic, Islamist militancy, climate change, and ongoing conflicts were top on the agenda. But how effective will the continental body be in dealing with these issues? Have a listen to this. Under the theme of building resilience in nutrition on the African continent, accelerate the human capital, social and economic development, the Assembly of the African Union Heads of State and Government on Sunday concluded its 35th ordinary session, outlining African priorities for 2022 and beyond. The two-day summit, which followed a break in 2021 due to the coronavirus pandemic, was marked with calls for continued African solidarity in addressing the impact of the coronavirus on the continent and the urgent need to address the emerging scourge of unconstitutional change of governments and terrorism across the continent. Senegalese President Macky Sall, who took over the one-year term rotating AU chairmanship from President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, emphasized the need to exert concerted efforts in responding to continental threats such as instability, climate change, and the devastating impacts of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
As you're aware, Africa at this moment, at present, is facing many factors of instability, including terrorism, unconstitutional change of government, but also the tragic consequences of COVID and the effects on economy and also the social situation. But we also have the challenge of economic recovery for Africa. The development financing based on a new partnership that is a win-win partnership with all the other parts of the world without any exclusion or exclusiveness, and which obviously takes into account our development choice and also the choice of society.
Addressing the media, Musa Faki Mahamat, chairperson of the AU Commission, emphasized that the array of coups raging in West Africa, as well as the unresolved issues of financial independence coupled with sovereignty, need attention.
This was a fruitful meeting, that is physically. The chairman has also told you the challenges that the continent is facing: security, political, institutional challenges, economic challenges, even health problems, despite the difficulties that the African Union and the Commission and all the organs of the African Union, we've been able to function and continue our work. The meeting that has just ended has been intense, and we have, in fact, been questioning our instruments, in fact, challenging the leadership of the African continent in order to take up in a bold manner the challenges.
The ECOWAS has suspended Burkina Faso and Sudan in the wake of military takeovers, as did the AU. The chair said the security situation called for more active inter-African solidarity. The AU's inconsistent response to the slew of unconstitutional change of government has been particularly damaging, according to some observers. The AU has had some wins in the past year, though. It played a positive role in ensuring that Zambia's election dispute ended in a smooth, peaceful transfer of power. It has continued its strong response to the COVID-19 pandemic, lobbying for equitable access to vaccines and debt relief. President Xi Jinping of China has congratulated the AU and its leaders upon successful completion of the AU summit, noting that this year marks the 20th anniversary since the founding of the AU. Xi commended the continental body for upholding its vision and mission, which had translated to strength, unity and development between its member countries. In his message to the AU summit, the president underscored the four pillars that will drive China-Africa relations: cooperation on the Belt and Road Initiative, the Global Development Initiative, the AU's Agenda 2063, and the African Continental Free Trade Area. His message was aimed at reiterating and affirming China's pledge to steer China-Africa cooperation toward high-quality and wider-ranging development and to write a new chapter in China-Africa friendship. Now, Ethiopia has successfully hosted the 35th Ordinary Heads of State and Government Summit of the Assembly of the AU. This is despite fake alarms, deliberate distortions by the Western media outlets that the nation is unsafe. In the following reportage, Johannes van Down will tell you about the effects made and the success gained from hosting the 35th AU Summit. Take a look.
Harambe, harambe, tuimbe pamoja. Harambe, harambe, tuimbe pamoja. Harambe, harambe, tuimbe pamoja. Kila rangi tunaipenda.
One of the images Ethiopia has had for quite long at the world stage is the fact that it is an international conference center However, the country's internal instability has opened the door for many to pursue their own agendas. Thus, some countries in the imperialist West have been engaged in exerting undue pressure against the nation. Some Western powers in particular have taken advantage of the situation to undermine Ethiopia's reputation as a conference center in Africa and in the rest of the world. In particular, various plots were hatched to make the 35th African Union Summit a virtual event or move it away from Addis Ababa altogether.
Tonight, Ethiopia welcomes you under a blanket of hopeful stars that shine across our skies. This night holds the promise of unity, friendship, and optimism as we pray together in celebration of the footstep we are taking towards the Africa we want. Excellencies and friends, we are gathered tonight in this earthly paradise that is Friendship Square, which signals a prosperous future that all Africans are deserving of. The seat of the African Union and your capital, Addis Ababa, has been undergoing great transformation over the past 3 years to evolve into a metropolitan befitting of the name New Flower.
In particular, given the country's turbulent year, given its war against terrorist TPLF, fruitless attempts have been made to prevent the AU's conference from taking place in the countries based on the fake alarms deliberately provided by some foreign embassies in the capital. The West even tried to hoodwink some African nations into opposing Addis Ababa's status as a conference center. This is in utter disregard to the contribution made by Ethiopia to the birth of Pan-Africanism and its relentless effort to the African cause.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest lesson that Ethiopia has learned over the past year is that without the solidarity of our African brothers and sisters, our existence as a nation would have been at great risk. This affirms the wisdom of our forefathers and foremothers in their dream of Pan-Africanism. The old saying is true: united we stand, divided we fall. Today, we stand proud and tall as Africans in the shadow of those who struggled to liberate and unite Africa. Our steadfast unity is the anchor and the foundation of our Agenda 2063.
Ethiopia is the epitome of African liberation and an exemplary nation for African independence. The West knows this too well. However, it has been leaving no stone unturned to undermine Ethiopia. That explains why its embassies were engaged in false alarms and efforts to help a huge number of their citizens flee the country. In 2021 alone, the UN Security Council convened no less than 12 times to deliberate on Ethiopia at the behest of this nation. With a winning spirit, Prime Minister Abiy also re-entertained this issue in the opening ceremony of the 35th AU Summit.
Africa's voice on the world stage needs to be heard loud and clear. Africa must also be represented on important international bodies. Today, more than 7 decades after the creation of the United Nations, Africa remains a junior partner without meaningful input or role in the system of international governance. This is particularly true of the United Nations, where Africa lacks representation on the Security Council and is underrepresented in a variety of ways. It is the right time to reform and revitalize the United Nations system to reflect current global realities and ensure that it is a more representative and equitable body. Only fair representation and transparency in those institutions can usher in a just era in multilateralism. Consistent with our Esluini Consensus of 2005, we should collectively insist that Africa's reasonable request for no less than 2 permanent seats and 5 non-permanent seats in the UN Security Council be adopted.
Despite international and domestic pressure, Ethiopia has overcome obstacles and challenges and has hosted successfully the Continental Summit. This is an incident that has embarrassed those who have been spreading false information through their embassies and medias a month ago, and has once again Ethiopia has won on the world stage. Hosting the AU Summit is one of the indications that Ethiopia is making greater stride in terms of diplomacy. Also, there is no doubt that the warm reception and hospitality accorded to the guests, in addition to the formalities of the convention, will still bring more victories to the country.
What to Africa? What to now, Bagosi? What to Africa? What to now, Bagosi?
Now, the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, arrived in Kombolcha town of Amhara region to visit the devastations caused by the terrorist TPLF during its invasion. Obasanjo has visited Kombolcha Polytechnic College and Kombolcha General Hospital. During the visit, he was also briefed about the magnitude of destruction that occurred on the facilities. Welcome back. Now, the issues of helping Africa get fair representation at the UN Security Council is an ongoing campaign. And some African leaders have been at the forefront of the request to get the international community to accept the call for at least 2 seats at the global body. Some delegates at the AU's session say African countries need to prioritize critical agendas to secure continental agendas at international arena. Haptama Shagre reports.
The United States, Russia, China, Britain and France all have permanent seats on the Security Council, meaning that they can veto any drafted resolution. Talking to TV, Peter Matuki, the Secretary General of the East African Community, said the permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council helps Africa to restore inclusive growth and sustainable development.
The Security Council is one of the most powerful organs of the UN, where decisions are made regarding peace and security in the world. And as you know, peace and security are very key for prosperity and for sustainable development. When there is peace and security, there will be economic growth, and there will be social growth, and there will be stability. And that is why it's very important when decisions are being made at the UN Council, all the continents needs to be represented. And I think it's important, based on the negotiations and the discussions that are going on here.
The African Union's request for 2 permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council is critical to secure continental advantage in various fields.
It is important that now African Union should negotiate to have a permanent seat in the UN. It is timely because look at the population, look at the resources, look at the strategic importance of Africa as a continent. It is very important that we possibly consider and negotiate for a permanent seat in the UN. Because through that and through the challenges that we are facing in Africa, and given the problems that we are facing, it's important that we have a permanent seat that can be able to negotiate, to support, to ensure that the challenges that we are facing in Africa are being addressed by the African Union, are being addressed by the African leaders themselves. So I think it's a high time, and I want to associate myself with the discussions that were happening here yesterday in regard to this very important subject.
Most of the decisions are being made, the decisions that actually affect Africa. And if you are not where decisions are being made, then you are losing it. So once we are there, of course we'll be able, and we have seen the members of Africa countries that have participated as members of the United Nations Security Council, we have seen the agenda that they have been trying to push across. For example, Kenya, you see, with the issues of climate, and of course the previous membership have also pushed an agenda. So if we can, for example, be able to sit there permanently, our issues, our agendas will find their way into where the real decisions are being made that have implications for the region.
According to Matuki, the permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council helps African issues get international attention. Some delegates underlined that coming together is fundamental to realize what Africa wants in the United Nations Security Council.
What we have to do is we have to continue to do what we are doing. First of all, we need to communicate among ourselves. We have to have a unified vision for what we pretend to do when we have this seat in the Council. And most of all, we have to have a position that we can also be an answer for some of the problems of the globe. African countries have a say. So if we all work together in that idea, in that vision, I believe that we can make it.
I think what needs to be done now is solidarity. The African Union leaders, the leaders in Africa, African Union itself, leaders from the regional economic blocs, they all need to come together and speak in one voice. Number two, we need to engage the rest of the world and make them understand the importance of Africa having a permanent seat. And thirdly is to identify friends who can help us achieve this in the world. And there are so many friends of Africa who understand and appreciate the strategic importance of Africa, and therefore we can engage these friends, and all together we move towards making this a reality.
Now the participants of the 35th AU Summit say this is a critical time for Africans to stand together and voice the continent's issues at the international arena. They also underline that Africans should strive to achieve Agenda 2063 with Pan-Africanist ideology. Jerusalem Batsia tells you more.
In May 1963, 32 heads of independent African states met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to sign the charter creating Africa's first post-independence continental institution, the Organization of African Unity, OAU. The OAU Charter, in which the founding fathers recognized that freedom, equality, justice and dignity were essential objectives for the achievement of the legitimate aspirations of the African peoples. Participants of the 2 decades-old AU's 35th Summit said that, as the vision of African forefathers, Africans should stand in unison.
Africa should speak to the world with one voice. We need common positions on all matters that are important for Africa. We need to unify economically. We need economic integration. You have to remember, Africa today, we have around 1.3 billion people, most of which are young people. So if we can harness the dividend of those young people, if we can unify economically, obviously we will become the powerful force of this world.
I don't think it is no longer a question to us. It is something which we have been implementing already. It's not a theory, it is in practice, it's going on. For our mother organization, the African Union, and the regional economic communities we have. We also, not long ago, the Free Trade Continental Zone was launched, so it is those are tools who are participating in the regional integration of the African continent. So it is a very important tool to talk about African unity.
Joy Pupumai, Executive Secretary of the Africa Leaders Malaria Alliance, on her part said, solidarity among Africans will help bring a milestone to achieve Africa's vision in the health sector.
Despite the huge challenge that COVID-19 posed to the African continent, African countries did their best to sustain investments in malaria, working together with partners under the leadership of the heads of state.
Agenda 2063 has aims to deliver on its goal for inclusive and sustainable development and is a concrete manifestation of the Pan-African drive for unity, self-determination, freedom, progress and collective prosperity pursued under Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance.
What does Pan-Africanism tell us? Pan-Africanism says that we have common interests and we have to be united. This is what Pan-Africanism is all about. So Pan-Africanism is calling for the unification of Africa. This is what we definitely need to do if we want to become this powerful continent that Agenda 2063 tells us we can become and we want to become. So the key lies in the unification of the African continent. Let us speak with one voice. Nobody, no other continent will develop Africa for Africans. Africa can only be fully developed by Africans. Now, since we have a lot of young people on this continent, let us give them the opportunity for them to in return be able to assist in the full development of Africa. So we need to give them opportunities, the proper education. We need to give them employment. We need to give them opportunity to contribute in the development of our continent. So the future is bright. The future lies on our young Africans, but it is us today who should work to give them this opportunity to develop our motherland, which is Africa.
The attainment of the Pan-African vision is created an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens, representing a dynamic force in the international arena.
Moving on, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, says it has been working to strengthen economic cooperation in the face of obvious issues of security problems facing the Horn of Africa region. Director of Conflict Early Warning Mechanism with the regional bloc, Kamlus Omoho, underscores that various initiatives are underway to counter threats of economic integration. Kushumadasa reports.
Regime change and shifting alliances in the Horn of Africa over the past few years have given one of Africa's most unstable and least integrated regional blocs, IGAD, into further challenges. An 8-country regional bloc that includes Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan, Kenya and Uganda. The IGAD was set up in 1996 with the primary goal of addressing conflict in the region. Now, IGAD emphasized on security issues in the Horn of Africa. In an exclusive interview with ETV, IGAD says it is working to strengthen economic cooperation, although there are still unresolved security issues.
Then because of the overlapping nature of the drought and conflict, then the member states expanded the mandate of IGAD to now include matters of economic cooperation, peace and security, social aspects also of our work. So basically, broadly speaking, IGAD is actually covering the entirety of what you could call the body of what really the region would want to work with.
However, the Djibouti-based organization has been unable to deal with a proliferation of conflicts and a breakdown in multilateralism. Some say that IGAD is currently facing an existential crisis and unable to contribute to promoting peace and stability in a region that faces multiple challenges. Commenting on the accusation, the director defended the 8-member regional bloc.
Inside the South Sudan itself all started, you know the role that IGAD has played to bring the warring parties together, and you see the peace is holding. Of course, it has a bit of challenges, but IGAD's role can be seen. Now, even in the conflict in Sudan, you can also see how far IGAD has been able to engage in supporting member states and supporting actually a Sudanese-led peace initiative. And recently, the executive secretary of IGAD was there for fact-finding mission. So it wouldn't be right to say it's toothless. Actually, we are doing we have done so much, really, to support peace in the region.
Terrorism and extremism still continue to ravage the continent and have cast a bad spell on economic integration. The director said efforts are underway to counter terrorism by mobilizing youths.
For starters, we have 2 important projects within IGAD. One is on matters counter-terrorism, and the other one on preventing and countering violent extremism. And we have a regional strategy for that, and we also have programs that are addressing matters of terrorism. So already this is also an emerging security concern for the member states, and IGAD is already implementing activities geared towards that, including mobilizing the youth, coming up with alternative narratives, and also supporting member states come up with protocols that will help them rid the region of terrorist activities.
Observers argue that IGAD's importance compared to other regional blocs like ECOWAS and SADC is a means that it needs to exert more effort towards economic challenges facing the region. Kamlas explained that IGAD plans to address numerous border issues in a comprehensive manner. He urged countries in the region needs to collaborate fighting extremism and terrorism.
And now in business, the State Minister for Finance, Ayub Tekaling, calls on banking institutions to strive to be more competitive at the continental and global markets. Banks approached by ETV for their part say they are working to strengthen their financial capacity and increase ease of access to customers. Shagai Mata has more on that.
The financial institutions of the nation play a great role in boosting the economy. Ethiopia so far has 21 banks in its financial industry, 19 of which are private. Talking to ETV, Ayub Tekaling, State Minister for Finance, urged that banks working in the nation need to strive to be competitive in the continental and international market.
In all the private banks across the country, most customers have already bought bonds this year. The bank financial sector needs to work together. That's why the National Bank has opted to introduce a rise in its minimum capital. The banks should not be isolated, rather they should work together to be competitive in the markets. If you change the capital into dollars, it is still not competitive. Therefore, the banks need to work together.
Talking to ETV, bank owners of the nation outlined that although they are making progress from time to time, more needs to be done to be competitive with banks across the globe.
The presence of too many banks does not guarantee that the banking industry is witnessing growth. Similarly, the absence of many banks does not mean that the industry is performing at its weakest. We need to work together to produce strong banking industry in its quality and instead of quantity.
The number of customers holding bank account exceeded 72 million according to official documents dated September 2021. Owners of the bank stated that they are working hard to expand accessibility to customers outside the capital.
Microfinances have introduced lending to people organized in groups. We are financing bigger financial institutions like the SMUs. We can bring the desired results while working in collaboration. We are doing great in the SMU, whereas we must exert more effort in the agricultural sector.
The nation's total bank deposits contributed for 34.2% of the GDP in 2021.
The tears of Africans, they stood right out. The African Union has come about. The long dream of Pan-Africanism has come through, with much prospect in the future to do. So all Africans, let's work with our union. Africa wants to see peace, love, and prosperity.
አስተሳሰብ የአዲስ ቃና ብስራት ከአጥናፍ አጥናፍ ናኘ የአፍሪካችን ህብረት የአዲስ አስተሳሰብ የአዲስ ቃና ብስራት ከአጥናፍ አጥናፍ ናኘ የአፍሪካችን ህብረት በልጆችሽ በዜጎችሽ ህልማቸው ተፈታ በአፍሪካችን ህብረት ምስረታ በአፍሪካችን ህብረት ምስረታ እንግዲህ አክትም እንግዲህ ይብቃ የልጆች አምባ ራስ ሰቆቃ ጦርነት ስደት የችግር ቀንበር ይወገድ ከአፍሪካ ምድር ይቅር በዓለም ስማችን እንግዲህ አክትም እንግዲህ ይብቃ
You're still watching Addis News Hour. Now, South Africa is handling the socio-economic crisis facing the SADC region. It has also played a critical role in restoring peace in Africa. This came in an exclusive interview by the CGT in Africa on the sidelines of the African Union's 35th Ordinary Session with the South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation.
We again have framed a SADC response. We have what we call SAMIM, which is the SADC mission in Mozambique, made up of various member states of the SADC region. We agreed that we would deploy members from our forces to assist our comrades in Mozambique to repel this terrorist threat, which is a terrible threat, because we realized that once terrorists gain ground in one country in a region, they then, as we see in West Africa, spread to other parts of the region. And so we wanted to work hard at containing them and having our unified forces exercise that role. Of course, Mozambique also drew in support from Rwanda. And I think this has been also a good experience of inter-regional collaboration, which is the kind of unity we want to see on the continent. So that if I have a problem in my region, it shouldn't just be me who attends to it. Others should be able to come to our assistance, and we should work together to resolve our problems. This is the essence of what the African Union should be doing.
The minister also expounds the role that the South African government played in restoring peace in Africa.
We're doing several things. For example, from my department, with the support of the revenue from our treasury, we run a very robust program of African women in dialogue to train women negotiators who can play a role in negotiating for peace, but also who should play a leading role in the post-conflict process, the process of reconstruction. Because we find that women on our continent are often victims of violence, but don't become part of the leadership once peace has been achieved. So we are working throughout the continent. We invite women annually to participate in our Women in Dialogue program, which is this training we provide. But we also, of course, as South Africa, contribute to peacekeeping missions of the United Nations. We're part of the missions in the DRC. We have been involved in Somalia and other parts of the continent. Our major ambition is to support the continent to achieve peace and stability.
She also puts her assessment of ties and future directions of the government of China and South Africa. Take a listen to this.
Ties remain very strong. South Africa and China have, as you say, a long-established friendship. It's a brotherhood that comes out of a shared collaboration in the struggles against colonialism. And so I think because of that very strong foundation, our friendship continues to grow from strength to strength. I also believe China understands that we need to grow our economy in South Africa, and that to do that we need enhanced and greater foreign direct investment. China is a large economy, and so we would like to see more Chinese businesses in South Africa. We would like to have increased exports from South Africa to China. This is happening in a very positive way, and we'd like to see more of that, because as South Africa, we need jobs, we need technology, we need higher economic growth. And I believe that the People's Republic of China can play a role in ensuring we achieve these.
Well, now let's take a quick look at the weather updates of some African nations, and I'll be back.